Here we have two people who are deep into running companies and using technology in highly innovative ways. And I think there's a lot to learn from their experiences. I guess, why don't we start with Paul, and maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview on Ocado and how it's faring.
Sure. So most of you probably won't know Ocado because we're based in the UK. We're in fact the world's largest pure-play online grocery retailer. We don't have shops. Instead, we have customers place their orders on mobile apps and on web shop, and those orders are then picked and packed in huge automated warehouses. They're in fact the largest of their kind in the world, and then they're shipped to the customers' kitchen tables with our dedicated last mile fleet in 1 hour delivery slots. And technology is very much at the center of everything we do. In fact, we often call ourselves a technology company that does retail. And we probably have much more in common with the likes of Google than we do our kind of bricks and mortar competitors. From a customer point of view, it's all about delivering the greatest range, choice, service at a compelling price in as simple and convenient a way as possible. But that simplicity actually belies the truth, which is look under the surface, and that simplicity doesn't come easily. It's actually delivered with a huge amount of complexity and a huge amount of technology. And all of that technology, no unusual thing about it is pretty much everything is built in-house by my division. We buy very little. What we don't build, we get from either open source or a small number of technology partners such as Google. Since we started shipping products in 2002, over the last 11 years, it's really been a continual process of very rapid, continuous innovation to get to where we are now. And since we own every single line of source code of that solution, we're now in a position to exploit it, to monetize it in different ways, and we've now started to do kind of B2B type deals with that technology.
I've never had the pleasure of using Ocado as a customer, but I have to say that I am completely wedded to Waze and Noam's company, so I definitely would like to hear your talk about what Waze is and what it does.
So I'm new to Google. We were acquired about 4 months ago by Google. Waze began in the beginning of 2008, and our vision was to save people 5 minutes a day on their way to work. We want to basically save you time on traffic and the amount of time you commute. We want to own the commuting experience. Now, part of the challenge of doing that is that there are two companies, at the time there were two companies in the world that built maps. There was Navtech and there was TeleAtlas. Our app is a turn-by-turn navigation app. We want to give it away to free for users. And so we had a really big challenge. How do you do that? So we decided we're just going to go and build our own. It was something that was considered impossible at the time. And basically, when you're using the app and it's free in all the app stores, make sure you download it before you leave today or tomorrow. Basically, as you're driving, we're sampling your GPS chip and collecting location data. And we have about 60, 70 million users today around the world who are sending us this data. And then we use that with the fleet of volunteers, of about 112,000 editors who come online, and through a combination of algorithms on the one hand and people that are local that live there, we've managed to go ahead and actually build our own map of the world. And this was done at a fraction of the cost of the traditional methods. And one of the unique things about our community is that we today have people in every city you can imagine around the world who are local, on-the-ground people who are tracking what's going on there. Did a new road open up? Is there traffic situation? Is something going on? And they'll upload that information. And this is obviously something that commercially is kind of impossible to do, but we actually have them on the ground. They're all volunteers. And we talk about a lot of the changes that are going on. We have deep technological changes. We are 100% cloud company. We do not own a server. We do not own a software license. We do not own any kind of, we've written every line of code either ourselves or with a community. But when you think about the actual work and people engaging in what they do with us, it's a combination of really making things fun and putting people on a mission and on a vision they can relate to. And the boundaries between what's an employee, what's a customer, what's a partner are getting totally blurred. So without knowing anything about your businesses, I mean, I can guarantee there's some group of, usually young, but not necessarily, people out there who are going to try and basically do whatever you're doing in a radically different way. And these are the kind of things that cloud computing enables, and enables a very small, very low-funded group of people to do, and it can be wildly different. So we have, as I said, 112,000 sort of virtual employees who work for us, if you want to call it that way, by just creating a fun experience and a fun platform, and of course delivering value to our users. But when you think about a company like Navtech, which today is part of Nokia, who was doing similar things with 4,000 employees and hundreds of trucks driving around the world, et cetera, you can see how the world is changing. So we'll talk about that, but make sure everybody use it on your way to the airport. We'll save you some time on your way there.
Absolutely. So Paul, Noam's very much on the cloud today. Your technology is still very much in-house, and just curious what the rationale is for maintaining it in-house, what the benefits are that you see from that kind of approach.
It's in-house from a point of view of development, that's true. Increasingly, it's no longer in-house in terms of where it's deployed. So we're aggressively pursuing our journey into the cloud. That journey started obviously with, in Google's terms, with apps and then App Engine and big data, but now increasingly it's about the heavy lifting in terms of compute engine and so forth. And it's the big advantage of I mean, why we build so much ourselves is because partly it's about we don't want to be painted into corners where at 3 o'clock in the morning something doesn't do what it says on the tin, because our business is all about very high availability, because otherwise we're going to disappoint customers, and we can't, we can't accept outages of minutes, let alone hours. So we've tried the other way. We've gone the integration route. That's how the company started doing it back in 2002, and that all got thrown out, and it's all gone to the graveyard. And now, as I say, we feel the investment we've made, and it is a long-term investment. You don't put this amount in if you just want to deliver groceries in the southeast of England. We have obviously international aspirations, and that's where the cloud is particularly important in terms of making bridgeheads into other countries.
No, it's interesting. It's a massive operation that you're scaling up there in terms of growth. Both of you, I think, face an issue that I'm sure is common to many of the people in the audience, which is attracting and retaining talent, particularly millennial talent. And I wonder your thoughts on what it takes to bring those people in and to retain them over time.
Do you want to go on?
So I think it's actually interesting in the context of cloud computing. So when we look at cloud is a sort of a way of life. It's not a technology, it's not a platform. It's a way of life that assumes that unlimited resources are going to be available at any time, on any device, for whatever you're going to do, and you're not going to need to worry about it. And we ran into a problem in 2009 where we were growing faster than our cloud provider could provide us infrastructure. And we hit this build-buy dilemma. Literally, our quality of service was degrading. And we couldn't scale up fast enough that the servers weren't there, we had I/O bottlenecks, whatever it was. And we had to make a big decision. Do we re-engineer everything we've built to go and retain and scale in the cloud, or do we build our own data center? We actually spent a tremendous amount of time looking at this and speaking to everyone in the space. And I think the conclusion we came back with was either you pour concrete or you go to the cloud. Being in the middle doesn't work. And I think the number one reason is HR, is people. The complexity of running extremely large operations at the scale required is growing so fast that the ability to hire and retain these people is going to be limited to a very small number of companies. And if you are a whiz in the space, and you're going to have to think, do I go to work at Google or do I go to work somewhere else? Google's always going to outpay you. They're going to provide better incentives. They're going to be a more interesting place to work. And you're just not going to have the talent that can scale it. And for us, that meant re-engineering everything, from what databases we use to what our architecture is, building everything completely different. And so going to the cloud is not necessarily easier or simpler. Obviously, we could just throw some hardware at our problem. We would have gotten away with it much easier. But the trade-off between engineering time and DevOps or operations or IT, however you want to call it, time, suddenly has changed. It's suddenly going to be much more difficult to find people that can scale infrastructure to the size that we're talking about versus finding people that can write the code on the infrastructure. And so we made that decision and re-engineered everything. We've been to the cloud, and we've taken it to the extreme. So, I mean, not only do our IT systems, we've been Google Apps customers from day one. And so we had, at 2 million users, we had about 1.5 DevOps people. Today we're about 70 million users, and we have, I think, about 7 DevOps people. And that's really the economics that we can play with. We've got 113 people in the company, and we do not have one internal IT person. The office manager opens up email accounts and manages everything that's to happen there. And again, that's the competitive landscape I think that we're all looking at. Where can you find the talent to scale to where you want to go, versus just buying it off the shelf?
I would echo all of that, and certainly that reason why we're going to the cloud is definitely not about saving money. It's about that agility that comes to our developers by being able to do that kind of DevOps and release engineering approach. The other thing I might add is that we're a great believer in what I would call dry stone walling. I don't know whether you have dry stone walls in the US, but in the UK, people used to build walls out of irregular shaped pieces of rock, and those were fitted together just using not cement, but using just earth and lime. And by choosing the right shape of rock and the right orientation, and so they locked together, you could create extremely resilient structures that lasted hundreds of years. Now, whether we'll last hundreds of years is obviously a challenge, but I think one thing our culture is good at, I think, is accommodating individuals. And and often those are individuals who perhaps wouldn't fit into those kind of organizations that are built from very kind of regular shaped breeze blocks, if you like. And I think my experience of finding exceptional talent is that often you find it in the most unlikely places, and it's the people that you agonize the most about whether you should hire them or not that often turn out to be your superstars. And so, you need a culture that can accommodate that kind of diversity.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious, Noam, you've talked about leveraging yourself through cloud computing and relying on the technology expertise of the cloud service providers. What about, on the other side, you're also leveraging in terms of reaching out and recruiting a community of people who, as you said, are not employees, but are definitely providing a lot of value to the company and to your customers. How does that work, and where do you draw the line? I mean, what people should be outside, what people should be inside?
So the way we've worked, our philosophy was always, we want to have the minimal number of people in general. People are a huge liability. They have opinions, they do different things, they're difficult to manage. So our goal is always to have the minimal number of people in-house. And we agonized every time we hired a new person, we agonized over it. Because the distraction a new person does. Every new person thinks he knows better than everyone else, and take him a while, and then he's going to crash the system. There's an overhead around it that we all know. But this ability to actually engage the community is a DNA of a company. It's extremely difficult. And that's one of the reasons that Google acquired us, was really for this expertise, where Google's been trying to do this for a long time. Many companies have been trying to do this. And it's expertise that has to be baked into the DNA of the company. So we have users that can literally destroy our service. Like, they have permissions. The level of permissions they have could bring down the service. And obviously you've got to build your infrastructure in the right way for that. So if a new road is opened up here and you happen to drive on it, our systems will automatically detect that there's a new road there, and they'll raise a flag to one of the area managers saying, hey, I think there's a new road there. He's going to look at it, oh, of course, that's that new road. He's going to go and pave the road, but he's going to name it after his girlfriend. I think that would be a cool idea. So then the area manager gets a notification, hey, a new road was created and it's named Julie, and he's like, oh no, that's actually the 101 South or something. And so he's going to overturn that. He has a higher rank, the rank locks. Above that, there's a country manager. And at a certain point, there may be disputes that'll go up to the country manager. And he's going to be managed at the end by what we call global champs, which are experts at different aspects of our service globally. All these are volunteers. The global champs actually communicate with our support team. So we have about 10 people supporting 112,000 editors. And because it's completely self-contained, I have no way of knowing, in Italy, in a small town in the south, what's the right name of a road? Or what's the road convention in Malaysia? And what makes sense or doesn't make sense. But they know. And this is, I think, a huge leverage that's coming into play. We've seen that, obviously. In our case, you see that in general in crowdsourced applications. There's tremendous value to unlock in opening up. There's tremendous risk as well. And we've had a whole variety of, we can spend a long time over a lot of beers talking about crazy things that have happened on our system, including people building cities in their own name, just so they get their name on the map, like crazy things. So, you have to build in the systems, but you have to have a DNA for it, but you have to take risk. And we spoke about the different risks, 10x, shots. So I'm sure my cost of labor is 10x less than any other mapping company, or 100x less, or however you want to look at it. But that comes with risk and tolerance for risk. And it's very easy to talk about tolerance for risk when you're sitting here. It's much more difficult at 3 in the morning, a day before you're about to go and raise funds, when your whole system's down because somebody took that risk, right? And that's the appetite for risk that has to be developed. And I think Google does a very good job of that by institutionalizing it. In a startup, all you have is risk, right? Because everything is risk when you're in a startup phase. But as you begin growing, you get more and more users, you have to be willing to risk them because people feel it. If you try and scam reviews, immediately people will feel it. You don't know how, but somehow they will. If you try and pretend that they've got users, people sense it, right? We're community people, animals. We sense each other, and we sense when things are real. And when things are real and honest and open, people are willing to go a tremendous distance for it, as long as they can buy into whatever vision it is. And in our case, one of the good things, traffic, nobody likes traffic. It's the common enemy. There's no good guy in traffic. So it was relatively easy to get people to commit a lot of their time to come with us on this vision.
I'm curious, just how many of your companies are actively mobilizing communities of users to add value to the company? Just curious if there are examples. A few. I think it's a huge opportunity, and I actually wrote a book back in 1996 on the importance of virtual communities and driving business value.
What's interesting,
it's really great to see
one of the things we saw is as soon as someone contributes, his retention skyrockets.
Yeah.
Just
Loyalty.
the act of contributing makes people much more engaged with the brand, and they view the brand as better. Because I did it has to be great, right? I made it. And so there's the value is way beyond just cheap labor, right? The value is just an order of magnitude.
Paul, I'm curious, one of the initiatives you and I had talked about was this dashboard project.
Mm-hmm.
It really struck me as an interesting example of helping people to learn faster, and just wondered.
Sure. So we have a huge amount of data of all different kind of levels of quality and structure across the organization, a huge amount of data exhaust that's spat out by our warehouses every second. And we have all the traditional kind of MIS and BI and stuff like that for carving it up. But the trouble is, there's just too many screens that people end up changing between, and none of them are quite configurable enough. And so we decided the answer was really to kind of throw the whole lot out and to build a brand new dashboard framework running on App Engine, and to put the power back in the hands of the users and allow them to build the dashboards they wanted using a kind of library of widgets. And this is all kinds of information. This is HR information, like who's joined the company today, or it could be the CEO looking at data on today's sales, or it could be a developer who works in a team looking after a particular bit of our systems who wants detailed stats on how deployments are going or change requests. So all of that is available through different widgets that are being built at the moment, and being able to build as many dashboards as you want and to be able to have them at home or at work or on the move. And it's just really kind of accepting that users need that control themselves rather than trying to have a one-size-fits-all type of approach.
It's so important on multiple levels. Business intelligence has been around for a long time, and it's all been about helping to get information more readily available to senior executives or middle managers to run the business. And this notion of feeding it back to the front line, to the people who are really actually delivering the value to the customers is critical. And yet so few companies have that kind of feedback back to the front line. Just as an aside, we spent time looking at where you see scalable learning emerge in a lot of non-business arenas. One of them was online video gaming, and the whole concept, for example, in World of Warcraft, of user-formed dashboards, designed dashboards. Each participant has a dashboard that tells them in real time how they're doing on the metrics that matter to them. It's huge.
And slight adjunct to that, that's why we're also very excited about gamification and the role that that has within our warehouses in terms of our hourly paid workforce, actually giving them a better sense of feedback in terms of the how they're doing, and also just making their working lives more interesting by both competing against themselves, but also sort of friendly, healthy competition against their colleagues, but in a constructive way. And so that's another kind of feedback.
Yeah.
And gamification is interesting. I think if you go back 10, 15 years, work was not supposed to be fun, right? It was supposed to be very organized and structured, professional. We wear suits, we do this, we do that, the whole thing. And I think we're this trend of consumerization of the enterprise. I think gaming mechanics is one of the strong aspects of that, whether it's to consumer or internally. So one of the challenges we had to deal with when we started out is our service literally sucked, right? We're a service that's based on a community with a certain critical mass of users before it can deliver the value. For the first user, it's going to be terrible. And for the first 100,000 or million users, it can be terrible. And so that became our biggest challenge, right? How do you convince people to continue to drive around with an application open that's eating their battery, using their network connection, and it's delivering negative value, right? Because it'll actually take you, okay, you lost if you try to listen to it. And the way we went on this really was gaming mechanics. And so the first thing we did is we covered the whole map with these virtual points, virtual dots. And if you were the first user to drive on a road, a bar would come out and you'd see, for each point you drove over, you'd get a point. And the points would begin running quickly. And people loved it. They would go exploring everywhere, right? And driving everywhere. And while we're collecting all that data and making the service better. But then the problem we ran into is that basically people drove most of the roads. So we created these virtual goods that we would place strategically where we're missing data, right? We need multiple passes in the same place to actually understand a complex intersection. And people would go out of the way off the highway, drive in the middle of nowhere, so they can get 10 extra points from a strawberry that's sitting in the middle of the map. And these are the kind of things that, on the one hand, seem like just weird, like out there, like what are we talking about? But when you think about it, we're humans. We have today a tremendous amount of free time, whether it's at work or not, but we have a lot of free time. And our challenge is really how to fill this time. People are looking for a mission to get on board with. And this is what I think by gaming mechanics are a way of making that mission more fun. The point systems really give you a clarification or an idea of how far you've gone, right? Where are you? And people used to say, well, what's the secret of distribution in social games? You need a number with lots of digits that's bigger than someone else's, right? That's the goal. As long as your number is bigger than someone else's, people will play. And they'll do phenomenal things on it. So it's really, I think it's a really interesting concept how it's being adopted across different markets.
Although I will say too that I've seen a lot of examples where, to your point earlier about authenticity, you can use gamification to kind of put lipstick on the pig, if you will.
Still a pig.
It's still a pig, right? And so you got to be authentic in terms of what is this game and why should it be fun. And
you have to be authentic, and you also have to have a clear mission. Where is this leading to? I'm playing this game, it's all fun, but at the end, something's going to happen. And if there's nothing that's going to happen, people get bored very quickly and they go away. Played it once, twice, moved away. But if you can see how it's building towards a common goal, we're kind of, world wars are over, right? And big ideologies are sort of over. And literally, people are looking for meaning in their everyday life. And they want to come onto a cause. And we see that on our users, not only our power users, also our casual users. The fact that you are sharing information, helping someone else, as soon as we started showing you how many people you've helped, that's a huge boost. People began doing more just because they know they're helping other people. And we should never underestimate that. We're all cynical, and we should not underestimate the real need that people have to be part of something, to be helping someone else, and to feel that they're making an important difference in the world.
One last question for Paul. Another initiative that I was very intrigued by was the oversight engine. And
Okay.
It'd be great to just share that.
So we have hundreds of disparate systems that make up this kind of end-to-end pipe that goes from the customer back to their kitchen. And most of the time they behave themselves, but occasionally they don't. And sometimes they go wrong in a predictable way where they use normal kind of alerting and monitoring to tell you they've gone wrong, and that's fine. But sometimes they lie to you and they say they're healthy when in fact they're fundamentally broken. And a bit like the third gyro in an aircraft that's kind of looking at the other two, we decided the answer was to build this oversight engine in the cloud that sits there, and it listens to all the kind of normal alerts that are coming back, but it also looks at the kind of more intangible sort of indicators about what's happening in the business in terms of the data flows, the metrics, the other statistics coming back, whether it be number of checkouts in the web shop or number of orders going through the warehouse or the number of deliveries to the customers in a given hour. And it correlates those two statistically, and it spots inconsistencies between what the systems are saying and what the statistics are saying. When it spots that inconsistency based on previous observed behavior, it then sends an alert, and by running it in the cloud, it doesn't depend on any of our infrastructure, so it means if that goes down, we still get the alert, which is good. Even if it's just to basically say that the whole of Ocado is gone, we'll get that alert. But we think that's another kind of this smart machine that we talked about earlier today, because it's trusting nobody, and it's basically just trying to learn out of the box what normal behavior looks like.
I've been asking all the questions, and at this point I'd like to turn it over to you and see what questions are on your mind in terms of the kinds of issues that we've been covering here.
So when you gamification, it's cool, it drives behavior, neat stuff, but then everybody in your organization decides they want to do a game. So how do you decide which games to allow and which not? Because you only have one workforce or one customer base out there, and if everybody's doing a game, then they kind of collide, and it gets to be a mess.
So I think if the question is the game a tool or is the game the goal? So the whole industry where the game is the goal, we'll put that aside. When the game is the tool, the question is what you're trying to achieve. So for us, it was very clear. We need to engage users, get them to go through a certain process, which is to actually drive with our app open, when we had all these constraints around it. And so we knew when to stop with the gaming. We still have gamification components because it's fun. And fun is not a bad word. So we let users have the fun, but at the same time, the focus of the company shifted. Once we hit a critical mass of users, we shifted away, and we actually redesigned our app and shifted a completely different app at a certain point because the gamification was not the core anymore. It was just a side issue. So I think it really depends on being very focused on what you're trying to achieve and making sure you build the mechanics and everything to achieve that.
We also find it's useful. Obviously your focus is on customers, ours is on employees mainly, although we are thinking about how to use it with our customers as well, because that's a way about making the experience of shopping for vegetables more fun, if it can be. But it's also very useful for initiatives like Lean. If you want to embed, if you want to entrench new behavior, and you want to get people to learn new ways of working, then making it fun and engaging is a powerful way to do that, to overcome the kind of the barriers to not wanting to change. It's got a role to play there, I think.
Okay. Other questions? Oh, quiet crowd here.
Maybe we should ask some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll turn the tables here.
When you re-architected your applications, what process did you go through to select the next technology stack?
So, I guess when we had built our first version of the architecture, we had built this sort of traditional stack, SQL Server, Apache servers. Like we sort of did more or less what we've done in other places. And people brought their experience that they had from other places, a lot of people came from the telecom background, where they used to having extremely big machines. And that became the big dilemma, right? Why should we re-architect? We'll just throw some more CPUs at it, right? The design principle, when we started re-architecting, was we have to assume that we're working on extremely weak machines that are distributed. And that's a simple design guidance that led everything. So that meant what kind of databases do you need? The non-SQL databases, and we chose Cassandra, by the way, and we've been very involved with Cassandra and the open source community and things like that. But these are the kind of decisions suddenly you have to make. But we push it to the limit, also saying if you're already going to the cloud, you want to go all the way. So today, actually, all of our different zones that we use auto scale according to different processes that are going on, but they actually bid in an open market for the servers. And so we're paying fractional costs per server at peak time, which is theoretically going to be the most expensive. And our variance is about, I think, about 20x difference in number of servers that are operating between peak and off peak. And so there's all this other things that come into play once you commit. But you have to have an architecture that's completely distributed for that and really can take advantage of the scaling of the cloud.
And Paul, how do you think about the migration of your technology platforms?
There's going to be parts that are always going to be on-premise just because the real-time control systems that run in our warehouse, really the latency doesn't lend itself very well to moving to the cloud, at the moment anyway. As I said earlier, the agility that comes with allowing developers to work in those ways, unencumbered by how long it's going to get them to get a new VM deployed or a new bit of tin, is just transformative. And you just have to take that leap, I think, and you have to believe in that. It's hard to quantify that kind of productivity gain up front in a way. You just have to. It's a leap of faith, but I think it's one that's quickly validated.
Question over here.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, where does big data play a role with the type of business that you're in and the information that you're gathering?
So we have different kinds of big data. One big part is to do with our last mile operations. So we, as you'd expect, we track our vans in real time. That's not very exciting. But also we bring back in real time a whole range of data, everything from the temperature of the van, its road speed, its what gear it's in, its fuel consumption, how fast it's going over speed bumps, how fast it's cornering, etc. And that comes back either in real time or in more detail at the end of the route when it comes back to its depot and it's uploaded over Wi-Fi.
Like you and Noam should get together because your trucks would be feeding this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Just thinking about that.
And interestingly, we are the biggest. We provide our own road speed data. We don't buy it in, except in a new territory, because we can provide it in 10-minute increments or at whatever increments we're interested in. And it's there are many roads where knowing what the speed will be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday versus the same thing out of school term is just chalk and cheese. So we feed all that data back into our routing systems, which are our own routing systems. And so that's a big piece of big data, all that kind of GPS and engine management data. And then there is the usual kind of stuff from web shop in terms of analytics, which goes up into the cloud. But another bit is this data exhaust that comes from these warehouses, because that's, rather than having it sit on disparate servers, if you stick it up in the cloud, it makes it much easier. Instead of people grepping logs, on different machines, they can actually see it all in one place, and you can then get an idea. You can have a timeline that spans multiple systems, and that's very useful when it comes to finding problems, because you can now see, the kind of the knock-on effect of, oh, that happened there, that perturbation then fed through, and then it appeared over here, and that's a picture that's hard to get when the data is all sitting siloed in little lumps, across the organization. So I think it's pulling it together all in one place and then just being able to leave it there in perpetuity. And maybe one day it's useful and you come back to it, but given the costs of cloud storage, our plan is pretty much just to leave it there, and keep everything.
Yes.
It looks to me like one of the reasons it works is not just gamification. It's easy to put information in ways, but there are certain things that people are passionate about. I personally have put in every traffic camera in Fremont because I hate those bastards.
Yes.
Almost a lot of my time doing that because I want those bastards to make more money. So I think that to find that passion in enterprises that create it, it's tough to come back and get past that passion to something at work because you have to work all the time. Right? So I think that's. Have you thought about it? It's not just social or gamification or user interface. You got to find something that people hate or love.
So I think it's going to be impossible to gamify eating your vegetables to a
Right.
2-year-old. No matter what you do, no matter how sophisticated the game is, they're not going to eat their vegetables, right? So there obviously is a question of the pig, right? No matter what it is, if you have a really bad proposition, people aren't going to do it. No matter how fancy, what a slick UI you do and everything. I think the reality is in the world that things are in the middle, right? Most tasks that we do at work have some level of interest in them. Now make it a little more competitive, make it a little more public. You can accelerate existing trends. And everything we've done is the same thing. It's not that if my gaming infrastructure is interesting enough, I will get my mother to come and build maps. She will never build maps, no matter what I do, no matter how many points I give her, right? It's not going to happen. So I think that more than anything, it's about accelerating trends. And every fractional acceleration can be huge when you talk about large numbers. And I think one of the interesting things about the data sets we're talking about today, or the users, et cetera, we're talking about millions and billions and terabytes, et cetera. The fractional changes are what matter, and that's exactly where I think gaming and mechanics can make the biggest move. Changing the world, there could be part of it, but you still have to have that vision of what you're changing.
The whole topic of passion is an interesting one. I think if you're serious about scalable learning and driving innovation in a more sustained way throughout the enterprise, the passion of the employees is absolutely critical. I mean, you can put into place all the systems and platforms and everything else to enable and facilitate that kind of innovation and learning. But if the individual is not passionate about the work they're doing, it's going to be very hard to get that learning to its maximum. We just did a research project looking at levels of passion in the US employee base. And right now, across the entire US, 11% of workers are truly passionate about the work they do. So 89% are not. That's a huge issue. And I think one of the key issues that we ought to be thinking about in terms of culture, cultivating the culture for learning and innovation in the enterprise.
Just on that point, I think one of the interesting things about passion is a little bit like a virus, right? When it starts spreading, people it'll infect people, and they'll infect other people, and a lot of these either gaming mechanics, but even just plain dashboards, just showing someone how well he's doing, right, is part of showing out who's passionate, who's not, and bringing it out. One of our challenges was, how do we build a dashboard for a community? How do you decide if a community in Malaysia or in Kuala Lumpur is healthy versus a community in Boston? And these are the kind of things that once we actually created the metrics, and we can predict now the health of a community to that's another discussion, it's very interesting, but you actually see that when you open it up to people, they get worried about the health of their community, they go out and recruit more people, right? And they bring on more people, and again, it's contagious, it gets out there. So I think gaming mechanics, part of the idea, just showing how you rank to other people by itself shows sort of passionate levels and gets you more interested in what's going on.
I'm told that we've reached the end of our allotted time, so I appreciate the discussion. I think it's been very inspiring in terms of the potential and possibility, and look forward to continuing the conversation in other forums. Thank you.
And today, Waze is free for all participants today in the app stores, so don't forget to download it.